Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. And to this video today we will be using this Fontaine watercolor paper. It is 18 by 24 centimeters or 7 by 9.5 inches, 300 GSM or 140 pounds, cold pressed and 100% cotton. But any watercolor paper you have will do. I will be using also my watercolors that I made myself, and this one very large brush, mauve brush. Also, one smaller round brush for a little bit more details, and this, well, I guess it is not a script brush, but I do love to use it for very thin lines and for finer details. And today also we will be using this ear cotton swabs. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but those little swabs for ears. And so without further ado, let's get to it. First, I will pre-wet the entire paper, and I'm picking quite amount of water, as you can see from my jar, and I'm wetting the paper because I really do want it to be quite wet and to stay a little bit wet for a longer time. So that is the reason why I'm using a lot of water. And also I'm making sure that there are no puddles on my paper, so I'm going over it quite a few times just to make sure that it's evenly wet. Now I'm mixing some blue. This is something like ultramarine, and this brownish color, somewhat like, I guess it's not really sepia, maybe Mars brown, to get in this a little bit more saturated blue, a little bit more blue on the grayish side. I don't want it to be vibrant. I do want it to stay a little bit muted. And I'm starting off from the upper part of my paper with the most paint in it, going downwards all the way down. And as you can see, as I'm going downwards, there is a less paint in my brush. So that is the reason why we are getting that graded wash, and on top it is darker and on the bottom it is lighter. So I am going over it a few times because I do want to make sure that my wash is beautiful, that there are no any lines. So that is the reason why I also picked up my paper and just tapped it onto the table, just to make sure that paint goes everywhere and to stay one beautiful wash without linings and streaks on it. And then with, again, that same color, something like Mars brown, I'm just painting in the lower part, and that part is going to be our ground. So that is the reason why we added that brownish color to the ground. And now I'm mixing in a little bit of the black, and my black is, it's not really dark black, and it's not that neutral black or heavy black. So it's a beautiful black that has a little bit of brownish color in it. And I do love to mix it in with that brown just to get one darker shade. And then I'm just adding it on the lowest part, tapping in with the tip of my brush, and then doing some vertical strokes for the grasses. And since the paper is still wet, when that dries, it will be a little bit blend in with the background. It will look a little bit not so in focus, but blurred, and that is the effect that we want here. We do want it to make it look as though that is the little bit further away from us. Again, adding a little bit of that darker pigment in the lower part, and now I've picked up a little bit of the yellow and again that brownish color to paint in our grasses, those weeds. And I guess I'm just, with that larger brush, I'm just adding some lines, nothing special, just some lines here and there. Again, when this dries, it will also be blurred, and that is again what we do want. We do want some of those grasses, some of those weeds to be blurred, and some will be in focus, and that's something that we'll be doing later on when it dries. Now I have picked that cotton stick and dipped it into the water and just tapping on the onto my grasses, on those lower parts of the grasses, picking up the paint and leaving some parts a little bit wider. That's not something that really is absolutely necessary, because later on we will be again using them and we will be paint over it. But if you do want to do that, I just wanted to show you, you can absolutely do that, and just to pick up a little bit of the paint and to get that wider surface. And now with this smaller brush, I'm just adding again a few grasses that will later on blend in our background and just give this beautiful distant feel. And also I've added a couple of lines in those weed heads, and again, just to make a little bit more texture to them and a little bit more of the interest. With the mix again of that brown and black, I'm adding a little bit more of the details to the part that is nearest to us, a little bit more of the shadows, and then sprinkling some paint again. Well, why not? Because we do love sprinkles, so maybe that will look like some flowers that are also blurred. Afterwards, I just left the paper to dry completely, and now that it's dry, I can move on to painting the details to those weeds. And I'm mixing in some yellow and a darker brown to get this beautiful lighter color, something like rose sienna, I guess. And I'm making it quite light and watered down because that is the part that I do want to be light. And then with this brush with a very, very pointed tip, somewhat like a script brush, if you have a script brush, you can do that with a script brush, or maybe if you do have a round brush with a very pointed tip, that's also something you can use here. A round brush with pointed tip would be just fine. And now adding the pigment, that lighter color, to the upper part and also painting the stem. As you can see, I'm not really trying to paint any particular details to that weed head, but I'm just adding here and there some paint and also doing some hairs going out of that weed head. And I will also add a little bit of the brown color to the stem because I do want the stem to be a little bit darker. And now I will also add that brown practically straight from my palette to those weed heads, and just paint in the center part and the lower part a little bit darker because we do want it to make it look as though this part is in shadow, or there is some stem peeking through those. Well, I guess I'm not sure what that is, that weed head. That's the soft color. I'm not sure how that is called. So at the lower part, I'm again adding a little bit of that darker brown, and that is basically it. And that is how I will be painting all of those grasses. And now that I have finished with all of those, as I said, in absolutely same way, I've painted all of them. I'm adding a couple of more grasses in the lower part and just flicking my brush upwards and painting in those grasses. And also for some of them, I am using the belly of my brush to make sure that there is some texture. You can see that lines are broken, and that is what we want. We don't want lines to be completely straight. If they get broken, even better. And now again, tapping in a little bit of the paint here and there. And of course, why not? I do love sprinkles, so I guess you probably already know that I add sprinkles everywhere. So why not? Some little flowers, something going into flying in the air, and why not? Maybe there is some wind there. And now with that same cotton swab, I'm just picking up some paint here and there. You can see I revetted it, and I'm just picked up a little bit of the paint, and then with a towel pick it up. And that is how I got the feel that there are some flowers maybe in the grass downwards. Right now I'm using again that cotton swab just to make sure that the lines, the edges on my weed heads aren't so sharp. I do want to soften them, and I do want it to make it look as though those heads are a little bit soft. So with that cotton swab, I pre-wetted, wet, of course it has to be wet, but not very wet, just slightly wet. I am smudging those edges and making sure that they look a little bit softer. With a leftover paint that I have on my swab, I'm just adding a little bit more of the pigment here and there on those weeds that are in the background. So just to make a little bit more texture to them and to make some of the parts of those weeds a little bit sharper. And now again, adding a little bit more of the details, a little bit more of the grasses in the foreground. And with that, I'm done with my painting and of course with this video. Thank you guys a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and you like it and you're maybe gonna give a try to this painting. And it is quite simple, I do believe. If you do like this video, please hit the like button, share it, comment. If you haven't still, please do subscribe to my channel. That would really mean a lot to me. Maybe consider joining my channel. That's the join next to the subscribe. Well, click on that, listen to the offer and the side. Thank you so much for watching and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!